Geography and You presents.
Welcome to Building Educated India, a GNY live podcast where we ask about NEP 2020 and its implications in a rapidly digitalizing world. I'm your host, Hiteshika, and in today's episode, we take a hard look at the promises and perils of digital education. As a young person growing up in the age of smartphones, online classes, and digital education, I often find myself wondering, is this really education or just information dressed up as tech? Will future classrooms have teachers at all, or will they be replaced by algorithms? To help us unpack these vital questions, we are joined by our discussant, Dr. Sulagna Chattopadhyay. With nearly 3 decades of experience in climate change communication, policy advocacy, and social outreach, Dr. Chattopadhyay brings a critical lens to how education systems adapt to or are reshaped by larger political and technological forces. Her deep engagement with equity, governance, and sustainability makes her the perfect voice to navigate today's discussion. We are honored to be in conversation with Professor Anita Rampal, a renowned educationist, former dean at University of Delhi's Faculty of Education, and one of the key architects in India's National Curriculum Framework 2005. She has been a fearless critic of market-driven education reforms and a passionate advocate for learning rooted in care, equity, and justice. Over to you, Dr. Chattopadhyay.
Thank you, Hiteshika. We welcome Professor Anita Rampal to our studio today. Madam.
Thank you.
So if you could, take from a cue from what Hiteshika said and, say that will all teachers be replaced in the future? So let's talk about teacherless classrooms really. What do you see? Like there's this David Game College in London that has already experimented with this. They've done the first, prototype. They have virtual reality and they have AI and they learn. And it looks very tech. But do you think, what is the end game for this kind of a classroom where there are no teachers?
In India, we have many classrooms which don't have teachers. So we should be careful about what we are talking and which scenario we're looking at. And I have been to hundreds of classrooms where there may be just one teacher and 100 children, but they do very interesting things. Not necessarily with just sitting in some cubicle or doing something with some equipment, but technologies which are of a different kind. For us, anything is a technology. I mean, how you work on the ground, you work in the field, the way you innovate, the way you improvise, whether it's science or mathematics or geography, that for us is technology. So, but it is true that what is happening now and we have seen the pressure in India because there's a big industry, there's a big tech industry, and the school system is huge. So what happens is that the school becomes a market. It's a huge captive market. Children are captive in any case in classrooms. So that is the worry, and we've been constantly very wary about the pressures. We've had these pressures since a few decades now, but more so in the last 2 decades. And it is true that what is happening now, especially with AI and especially with a lot of online education, is that it is being touted as something where you can do, even in documents, where you can do without a teacher or where there is no teacher. And that is not my idea or our idea of education.
Okay. So now you've given me cues for 2 more things from here. So now, for example, what you said that students, when did this happen really? When did students become commodities? And then the shift happened where, you said that, and of course, that was a very important point you brought in, that we have classrooms without teachers for a very long time now and nothing really to remedy it. So tell us, when did you see this shift that students suddenly become this bank of data where you just keep pushing them for something or the other?
This has come in more when a lot of these technologies are coming into the classroom or even into the shadow industry or the coaching industry.
Yes.
Because that has been doing a lot of this. So this is, I would say, certainly in India, I would say, yes, in the last 10 years we've seen it, and much more after the COVID, when everything went online. We abandoned our schools, we abandoned our children, and then we just sat wherever we were and we said, now, come on, let's go online. And that was the worst that we could have done to our children, even to our teachers. Because that's when, again, the push was the industry. Who was benefiting from this? No one else but the industry. And they were predicting sort of sudden hike in what the worth of that industry was in terms of billions of dollars, and we've seen that across the world.
But there's some countries, like I just want to bring in over here, that there are some countries that are doing a full U-turn. Like, for example, the Scandinavian countries, Finland, and they've said that till the senior secondary education, till that, you're not allowed anything, no phones, no tabs, nothing. So what do you feel? What do you feel about this? My question is that, are we seeing that the digitization of education is not happening or functioning the way it was intended? What is the fallout?
We have to be very careful when we talk of intentions, because whose intentions? Right now there are very few educationists who plan education policies. So the intentions are of others who are coming in, whether it's the economics of education or whether it's the technology of education. You find them everywhere, and the corporates who actually are coming in a big way. So that is our problem, because their paradigm of education is very different from the legacies of work that has happened in our country, whether we start with Nai Talim, which was really work and education. Work was supposed to be the medium of education. Whether it's you're growing food or you're spinning cloth or you're doing something, and work was meant to be something which could be from life and for life, education. And that is something I see that even today when I go to schools. I go to the Vardha school, which was reopened, and the difference in how children, because it's work for everyone, every child, it's not creating hierarchies, because the digital industry tends to bring in more hierarchies and more divides. We have many social hierarchies to deal with, but this one also comes and says that the ability, the good high ability ones will be pushed into these kinds of courses, and the rest will do skilled courses. So, but Nai Talim and the progressive humanistic form of education says that work is meant for everyone. It's for every child, whatever you might do later. And the fact that if you're growing food, you're cooking it together. Finland does it. Finland has cooking compulsory in school till class 6 for everyone.
Wow.
So, if you do that, the way you engage with these ideas, the understanding of food that children come with, the sharing that children do, whatever be the gender, how they look at food, how they cook food together in their homes, the kind of sensibilities that develops. And that is also a technology. Cooking is a technology. So the way we use these words, we are careful about it. It just doesn't mean that a tab is a technology.
Okay, I'm going to hold on to one thought that you just brought in about that the difference that we have brought in, another stratification that you're talking about with digitization. Now, if we bring that into NEP, the NEP 2020 gives a lot of focus on the digital space. Now, what is your view on that? What do you think?
The whole chapter, probably 24, I don't remember, but the full chapter on technology came in during and after the COVID, during the COVID.
Yeah.
The whole NEP came in during the COVID. The chapter was added. The draft came in 2019, but in 2020, a full chapter had been added on these things, and disruptive technologies. And they sound very nice and fancy. And I know a lot of young startups, very intentionally sincere young people doing computers would come and tell me in a workshop, we are democratizing education. I mean, it's such a myth. that they are sort of bred on. That just because they said, where there are no schools, where there are no teachers, we're democratizing education. So the way we use myths to create these kinds of scenarios. And that's when we saw that, we have seen, because I have documented some of these things, what was happening in a family where there are no devices, or there is one mobile phone, which obviously the parent who's a worker is taking it away. What does it mean? And also, it's not just even those who were sort of replete with devices in a Delhi in a well-resourced home. What these things do, the whole thing is this neoliberal idea that education is your responsibility. You're a competitive individual learner. You're the consumer. These words are derogatory for a child or for any learner. But this is what is being used. And so it says that, you're solitary. No one learns as a solitary. It's a human characteristic. It's a human gift. And we are humans, and the way what has happened as humans is because we are social learners. We learn from each other. Our eyes are different from other primates because the black in the white allows us to follow someone's gaze. And anthropologists tell us that that's a part of our social learning. We learn from each other because we are made that way. And that has given us the advantage of whatever, humanity has been able to do, including, of course, the damage that humanity is doing to its planet. But I'm saying that, so social learning is a social process. I cannot learn alone. And so what is it that even if I'm using some technologies, it can be working with soil or working with fire or cooking, these are all technologies, or working with some computers, unless it's done in a process, in a context where I'm collectively doing something, when we are learning collectively. So even when we are doing a science experiment, or we are doing a survey, or we are doing something, when you use it in a process where it's collective, where a doubt that you might show on your face, or a frown or a smile that you might show, is adding to my learning. It's making me a better and more discerning learner, because we're learning together. And the learning that comes in is much better than what individually would have happened. And we forget that when we talk of education or learning and say one device, one tab, one tablet, or whatever it is. So that is damaging on children. So what we see in terms of social media, what it's doing to children, and that film that came out, The Social Dilemma, all these are true. Psychologists are worried, child development researchers are worried, and we as educators are worried that this kind of individualizing education, or thinking that you have to compete. I see little children, when they start writing, they write like this. They hide what they're writing.
Okay.
Little children. So, you wonder, where is this coming in? I'm writing something and I'm hiding it. From whom? This is so. The fact that this comes in very early in the way we treat children. You're staring at a board. You're doing some competitive answer. You're not supposed to be sharing. Don't talk. You can't learn like that. So the technologies come in and make it worse, because they also individualize and then even commodify a learner. You make the learner as a customer, a client. These are the words used, which I find completely demeaning for a child.
I can't
But
express.
how can people be selling these ideas and saying we've democratized education? Do they even understand what democracy is, or how you democratize education?
It's quite. I don't know how to express this.
Yeah. But it gets much worse.
heartrending.
It gets much worse when we use the child. One, of course, some of the new textbooks are coming in, like the class 3 textbook in NCERT. Aghast to see they've thrown out the whole subject called environmental studies. It's out. And they have something called the world around us, which is very vague. Nowhere in the world do you call this as a subject. But on page 1 of the textbook, it says, if you're worried about your studies, or you're not able to understand something, or you're worried about how your friends are treating you, then what should you do? Call this toll-free number and speak to the counselor. Can you believe it? A class 3 child, 7-year-old child, in your textbook, you're saying that the problem lies within you. And if you don't understand something, it's your problem. Don't question the textbook. Don't question the kind of exam that was given to you or what tasks you've been asked to do, because we teach children that you question everything.
Absolutely.
And that's how we learn or we make things better. But this is the way it's being treated. So this entire thing of the onus being on you is then making children feel even worse, because I can't even talk to my teacher or to my friend or something. I have to talk to the counselor. So technologies are coming in that way, that you just don't ask questions. It's imposed onto you. It takes over. It controls you. And it even sort of minds you and extracts you from you without your knowing it. So you think you're doing online education. That's what happened in COVID, or that's what happened with all these Byju's and all that. Byju's was in fact sued for malpractice, because this is what they're doing. They're doing, and then they go and pressurize the parents and say, this child is weak in this child is weak in needs more of this.
Oh my God, absolutely.
So
they come to your homes
and their cases
they analyze you.
Yes. They've been sued. So I'm saying this is mining children's data, and which no one can see. As a teacher, you may not be able to see how long the child maybe took, or did the child spend a little longer on something, or had a little doubt, or pressed the wrong button, then rethought, did all that. As a human being, you may not even be able to look at those things. But emotion analytics and algorithms now has really used children in the States and in China. Little children in classrooms are being used. You can see how they're used. They're developing these technologies, headbands and wristbands and everything. And the headband goes on, it becomes red to tell the teacher that the child is not concentrating.
Huh?
Yeah. I'll send you, I've written about this, I'll send you the links to this. Please just watch what is happening in the last 10 years in terms of research. Actually, it's research of emotion analytics. It's research on algorithms, which is being paid for other companies.
Third party.
Which is paid by big parties, Kellogg's and all that.
Kellogg's.
Parties which are interested in knowing about people's responses, because I can't see it. I can't ask you a question, but I can do it through algorithms. They can watch people's eyes through the algorithms, facial impressions, and see how you responded in the 100th of a second, which a human being cannot judge.
How valuable are these inputs? I mean, apart from the fact that it feeds into corporate world, but apart from that, just as research, how valuable is it?
It controls.
It is control.
It's total control, and there's huge money in that. I've seen this over 10 years. I first saw research being done in America where they called it efficacy of teachers. It was a Gates Foundation 1.1 million grant to a university saying that we are trying to study teachers' efficiency. And we all thought this is ridiculous. You're putting on wristbands on students and you're trying to test teachers' efficiency, because it looks at your skin. And that was, at that time, not looking at your eyes and your face. It was only going through the skin and trying to see emotions, the person's emotions through that. It's so invasive. And now the latest sort of neuroscience work that's happening, they even talk about implanting a chip in the brain.
Oh, my God.
So, there was a whole magazine on this by an institute in Delhi, a UNESCO institute, MGIP, which had brought this, and there was a thing about showing that how this is what it aims to do. So, I mean, we need stronger laws and regulation about this. You cannot use children for this research. We know in Udaipur, a research where 6-month-old child is being made to wear something on the wrist. The child becomes a cyborg because this child's, not only the child's health data, but the attendance of the health worker and the mother's direct transfer to her bank is being recorded. So this is how children are being used. So our children today in classrooms, when you have CCTVs, again, that's questionable, but Delhi government took permission from parents and said, we'll live stream it onto your phones. That's the worst that can happen to education. How can you build an intimate and a
So
trust?
it's already there.
Yes,
It's there in
yes,
schools right now as we speak.
Yes.
So there are CCTVs streaming live
But
feed to
I don't know
parents.
whether they're doing it now. They've taken consent. There was a lot of sort of opposition to that. So I don't know. But they had said in certain times of the day we'll do it. And I've met parents who said this. And
But don't you think that's completely undermining the authority of the teacher
the trust of the teacher.
and the trust of the teacher?
More than the authority.
Because-
It's the trust of the child. I mean,
because-
imagine the parents going and telling the child, why did you say this and why did you not say this?
Absolutely. And also between, when you are talking to a child, a learning a space, like for example, the way we've grown up, the professors and all, you share a special emotion, a special care, a special, the fact that somehow they occupy a space where parents are, because you have a lot of a fantastic relationship
Absolutely.
with teachers as well, and they motivate you. They want you to do things better, and sometimes it becomes so it's so critical for your development as such. So the way teachers, like for example, you were talking about the Ashoka University case a little while ago. So. And I have also got several people who have, talked to us about how they can't bring, several of my friends really, who can't bring issues of the classroom which they think are wrong because the parents are, elite or which would we say a certain class in the society. So they cannot bring issues up, or they would be dismissed, especially in private organizations. Yeah. So like I said, and this is what I meant when I said authority of the teacher, to be able to exercise her or his freedom to treat a child as a child.
The autonomy of the teacher.
Yes.
Absolutely. That relationship is very, very critical. What a teacher is meant to and does manage to establish with children or with the class. And in any case, why should there be this big brother, big father, big mother, everyone watching you? When you're in a classroom. So this is totally unacceptable. There was a court case. There was a case which, teachers also protested. And but you know how much voice teachers right now have. Teachers themselves are being punished in this way.
Yeah.
They have resisted. In Gujarat, the teachers' union resisted because they were told they'll have facial recognition attendance, and geotagged. So the women said, nothing doing. It's not safe. How can you insist that we should be doing that? So teachers are themselves resisting, but you know that. In Delhi, for instance, all the Safai Karamcharis, they have these wristbands. They're being used for their attendance. So this is completely, that's surveillance, and then that data surveillance where your own data is taken. It's not just that, you're being watched, but your data is being extracted, used for anything. Now we know of the research in America, for instance, tells us that children's everything from their monitors that see what little babies are doing, that information is being taken by the companies, sold off by third parties, and used for various purposes.
So, just my final question to you. Where do you see, or do you see NEP being changed or modified where, at least the digital space is concerned? And another just little add-on to that is, you did mention a little while ago about the coaching institutes being actually leading us to this kind of a movement where companies are benefiting. And you used a very interesting term called data villains. So now if you can just link this up and tell us as a closing comment from you, that can we stop the coaching? In a sense, if we are doing tech, does it mean that one can be overridden by the other? Or can the NEP be actually revised to perhaps relook at the digital?
NEP
education?
needs to be revised in many ways. So this is certainly one of that. But it's just building a resistance, building more awareness, doing research and showing what these things are. And also because it's, as I said, it's not just saying that we have managed to it'll be coaching, but also what is happening in terms of the way they're being assessed. It's called customized assessment. And children know what this I'm opposing this and writing about it and researching it with partners internationally. It's not just a question of India. It's even other countries where they have money, they have these devices. Platformization of education. In mathematics, for instance, I'm working with a co-author. We've written something in a handbook against that. The kind of impacts that's happening and what, by the consumerist values are coming through the platform itself. You're getting points and you won't buy it in the market, so that competitiveness comes through the platform when you're doing mathematics or whatever you're doing. So the way, because those algorithms are also made by people who come from a certain industry, they come from the global north. They're mostly, people, men. I mean, that's the way, that's the demography of the people who are working on these algorithms. And we know very well that algorithms are biased by those who work with them.
Absolutely.
So that is coming through even in the classroom, the way these algorithms work. The aggression, the competition, the what you want to buy, goodies in the market, all in the platform of doing mathematics. So we are questioning this across different countries. Different impacts of what this kind of technology is bringing into the classroom. And certainly we need to resist, we need to show, because NEP is, as I said, it's just coming in because of a lot of corporate push into everything.
Absolutely. I mean, that's palpable. I mean, you can kind of visualize
so this has to be, like teachers are doing it in their small way, resisting. We need parents to understand these things. That's important. And older students. I work with my master's or my PhD students, and I would find that even if you're doing science studies or something, I'd find that they weren't conscious about the apps they were using. They were not conscious about the permissions that they'd given. They were not conscious that their phone had recorded all their locations with 1 TB data, and they didn't know about it.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't think we are also aware really. Probably we'll also be giving out a lot
I'm
of
just
data.
saying we need to be conscious users of even the technology, the phone that may be in our hands.
Absolutely.
And use it well. Film it, use it, do experiments with it, but be very, very conscious.
Thank you so much, Professor. It was wonderful. It was really engaging. I mean, I didn't want to end it this fast, but
I thought you were trying to say thank you, and I was again coming up with something. So, no, this is an issue which you can't sort of. You just remember so many things that
too
can't
many
keep.
things, actually. I completely see that. But
I don't know how much sense one made in that, but there are too many things that.
No, I think it was perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time. And Hiteshika, if you can just close it for us for today.
Thank you for tuning in to this powerful episode of Building Educated India. We are deeply grateful to Professor Anita Rampal for sharing her decades of wisdom and her unflinching critique of the digital turn in education. Thank you, Dr. Chattopadhyay, for navigating today's conversation. As we heard today, the conversation on digital education is not just about devices and platforms. It's about equity, care, trust, and the purpose of education itself. When we design policies or curricula, we must ask whose knowledge is being centered, whose voices are being heard, and who gets left behind in the rush towards EdTech and AI-driven schooling. The right to education is not merely about access. It is about meaningful, humane, and critical learning. As Professor Rampal reminded us, learning cannot be reduced to data streams and children cannot be commodified. Join us in our next episode as we continue to question, reflect, and imagine what it truly means to build an educated India. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss an episode. A detailed blog of this podcast with all the additional information and reference links will be soon uploaded on www.geographynew.com. Until then, take care and keep learning critically.